want to share another idea that's related also to that inyan of that I spoke about on Rosh Chodesh, that there's, that day of tshuva that we have, there's the hour throughout the day, which is, on a daily level, there's, chatzot, which is midnight. That's like the hour of like tshuva. So I want to relate that same inyan to the parsha, right, of coming out of Egypt, going to Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah, the whole thing. That so the coming out, right, that aspect of coming out of Egypt, Hashem set it up in a way where throughout our life we have, even throughout on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, a monthly and a yearly, we have this aspect, this idea of like this redemption of coming out of Egypt. So we know that the weekdays in comparison to Shabbos, right, they correspond to the, to the galut, to the darkness, the exile. And then Shabbos is, Shabbos is the Me'ein Olam Haba, it's a little taste of the next world, which means it's like that little, that little coming out of Egypt, where a person comes out of that Egypt of the weekday and he has that. So on the hourly scale of the day, it's chatzot, it's midnight. That's that hour where a person gets up and cries over the destruction of his mind and how he fell to where he fell, and he does tshuva and does vidui and then, sits on the ground. Mamish just cries. If you read the nusach of the words over there, it's all about the rebuild. Talks all about the Beis Hamikdash in Jerusalem, but it's obviously all applying, to the heart, to the mind, to the brokenness of our fear of Hashem, like the awe and fear and greatness of Hashem in our life, and the destruction of our mind, how far we are from Hashem and from everything it is that we need to get to. And then you have Shabbos, right? So Shabbos is that Me'ein Olam Haba. And then you have, that coming out of the Egypt of the weekday, right? And then you have the whole month is Rosh Chodesh. We have again that Geula, and then I think it's Yom Kippur called Shabbat Shabbaton. It might be Rosh Hashanah. I think Yom Kippur is called Shabbat Shabbaton. I was debating whether it was between Yom Kippur. I couldn't remember if it was Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, which is that aspect of like, I know Yom Kippur is included with, it's the day included with all the days in the year that are included from within it. So I want to say that it's Yom Kippur is that, that mamish, that yearly, on a yearly scale, it's that day that is an exile from the whole year. Mamish a Geulah, coming out into the Geulah. And then the Yovel again, the 50th year, is that it's that Geula Mamish, that redemption from the Egypt, where everything becomes one again. Everything's free, all the land, everything becomes free. So we know on Shabbos, right, there's a mitzvah. This also I want to try related also to the thoughts. Thoughts, because we were talking a lot about the thoughts and the heart, and it's important. Rav Nachman gives a little eitzah that we'll get to, God willing, of the thoughts. How a person's supposed to control his thoughts and what he's supposed to do with the thoughts, because the thoughts are basically what throws most people off from staying on track. So we know on Shabbos, right, there's in the halachas of Shabbos, you have the halachas of the types of oil that are, kosher for lighting Shabbos candles, and the ones that are not kosher, right? Which ones could you use, which one you can't use. So basically, like, what it boils down to, the bottom line is like which oils, when you light them, the flame, right, it lights really nice. Like there's a nice, like if you light olive oil, you'll see there's a really nice solid flame. And then, oils that aren't so good, sometimes it depends on the wick as well, but oils that aren't good, like the light itself is like flickering a lot. You look at the light, it's like it keeps flickering, right? So that's like the thing of Shabbos. Right? You don't want to take a chance that somebody's going to take the oil and maybe tip the oil. Back in the day, they didn't have electricity, right? So that was the only light in the house. So they might go and like tip the oil a bit so it kind of goes towards the wick and catches onto the wick better. And because of that chashash, so there's the oils that don't catch really well, you're not allowed to use them. So what's bichal oil? What is oil? Oil, Rav Natan says that oil corresponds to, it's called like shemen, right? The shemen mishchat kodesh, right? Shemen corresponds, the oil corresponds to the purification of the mind, the purification of the thought. That's what oil, corresponds to. Like Mordechai, the shemen hamishcha, which Moshe Rabbeinu put together when they built the Mishkan. Shemen hamishcha was the oil that It was the oil basically that they used to anoint all the vessels that they built for the Mishkan in the desert. It was the oil that they used to anoint the Kohen Gadol, the Kohanim, so they can come into their holiness and start their work. It was the oil they used to anoint the kings when they came into Israel, and I think Shaul was the first king, and then David HaMelech. And so they have to be anointed, which means the Kedusha, in order for the thing to be sanctified and now ready for its holy work, it had to first be anointed with this oil, right? And the oil, we know, corresponds, Shemen Mishchat Kodesh, like Rav Natan says, it corresponds to the thought, the pure thought. Like Mordechai Yehudi, Mordechai in the time of Esther and Purim, right? Mordechai and Esther, so Mordechai corresponds, he's called Shemen HaMishcha. He's, what's it, Rav Chesed, I don't remember the exact thing, but he's the Gemara says that Mordechai is called Maridachia, the pure incense, the pure oil. So Mordechai is this concept of he was on the highest level. He got to the 50th level. His mind was very, very pure. Somebody who has his mind is very, very holy and pure. So his mind corresponds to this oil. So we use this oil, preferably olive oil, right, on Shabbos. And we said that all these days are like this redemption, this coming out of this exile. So the main exile that people go into is the exile of the mind. Like Reb Natan says, that what does it mean Adam HaRishon got kicked out of Gan Eden? And when he got kicked out, then Hashem put at the entrance of Gan Eden, he put it La'at HaCherev HaMitapechet, which is this sword that flips, like a spinning sword that is, protecting the entrance of Gan Eden, in order so Adam HaRishon won't be able to enter and go eat from the tree of life and live forever, because Hashem decreed on him that he won't live forever. So that was what Hashem puts. Nathan explains this sword that is talking about, it's a state of mind that Adam HaRishon was taken out of, which is the tree of life, this Garden of Eden, right? He was taken out of that, and this sword that was put there it's called La'at HaCherev HaMitapechet. Mitapechet means flipping. It's a sword that flips. He says this sword that flips is the thoughts. When a person goes from thought to thought, and his mind keeps jumping from one thought to another, and he can't stay on track, on something he's trying to focus on, and he keeps getting distracted because of his thoughts. Rav Natan says there's some people who are like Baalei Machshava, where they have mamish, like their thoughts, the way their mind thinks, from thought to thought, and keeps jumping. And when they'll get anxiety about something, they'll just go from one thing to the next and one thing to the next, and they think already 50 steps ahead of what's gonna be and what they're gonna say, and they can't get out of it. So it's a very difficult thing, and it's a hard thing, and a person needs to know, what's the eitzah on how to deal with this, this thought. So I was just thinking, it's interesting how they on Shabbos, Dafka on Shabbos, we have this mitzvah of lighting these candles, right? And we know that Shabbos, right, is the menorah, the I don't know how to say menorah, the lantern or whatever, that it has the three, they had the Beis Hamikdash, the menorah, so there was 3 on one side and 3 on the other side and 1 in the center. It had 7 kanim. And basically, all the 3 on the right and 3 on the left are connected to the center one. So we know that these correspond to a lot of different things. But on the weekly, on the Shabbos scale, right, the weekly scale, so we know Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is connected to the Shabbos, right? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They also correspond to the 7 shepherds that come in during Sukkot and lots of other things. But we see on Shabbos, Shabbos is a time, because Shabbos is, like we said, it's a taste of Olam Haba, meaning that Gan Eden that Adam HaRishon was in, all those thoughts that a person is thinking about and distracted throughout the week, right? They're supposed to be canceled completely on Shabbos, where his mind is just completely pure and thought, and he's just thinking of his tachit and what's my purpose in life, and just connect to kedusha and holiness without thinking of all the mundane weekly thoughts and distractions and stuff that he has. So the first thing we do is we light the candles, and Chazal say it needs to be with oil, in order so that your thoughts stay pure and stay focused. Right? We need to light the candles, and they need to be done with an oil that burns really well. Right? Meaning it gives a nice flame. So I was thinking that the flickering, when the flame is the oil's not good, when the thoughts, right, the oil corresponds to the thoughts. So when the oil is not a good oil, what happens is the flame is always flickering, and the flickering of the flame is like that sword. It's like those thoughts that are just going back, forth, back, forth. That corresponds to like weekday stuff. So Azal said on Shabbos, when you're on this day, which the whole inyan of Shabbos is mamish connecting with your thought to the one and only, connecting to, it's like stop for 1 second, look around, what are you doing in life? What's your purpose? What's your goal? What are you putting your force, your energy, your time? What are you putting it into? So you have this day to just kind of remember. Oh, okay, there's a purpose. I remember now. Yeah, Shabbos, Hashem, Torah, mitzvahs, singing, nigunim, kedusha, holiness. Right. So Chazal said that we have to use, specifically they wanted us to use an oil that the flame burns, nice and solid, so that it corresponds on these thoughts, like that you should have these solid, pure thoughts, no machloket, no arguments, no fighting, no going back and forth in the thoughts, right? So Shabbos basically is like this menorah that every person has. So like the house that we live in, I guess, would be like maybe the foundation, the foundation of the menorah, the base of the menorah, and then from within that foundation is where you have your Shabbos, that seventh day. So we see also this menorah is the Tfilat Shemona Esrei when we daven throughout the weekday, and this is the difference between Shabbos and weekday also, that on the weekdays we have, when we get to the final prayer in the morning, the silent prayer, so we know we have 3 prayers at the beginning, and then there's 3 prayers at the end, and in the center is where we have, the 12, right? It's like called Shemona Esrei, even though there's 13, but it's 12. It corresponds to the 12 tribes, but Yosef's tribe divided into 2, so it's 13. So, but it's basically 12, the 12 tribes, that's the center one, and really the 12 tribes is one. Like when we do that whole build-up towards the prayer, towards Shemona Esrei, from the beginning of davening, we finally get to the silent prayer, we're climbing up from one world to the next world, and we get to the final Atzilut, to the highest level. That's when we say Hashem's Fatay Tiftach, and we start the davening. So we get to this oneness. There's this oneness between Am Yisrael. The 12 tribes are all like one, like that stone of Yaakov Avinu that he slept on, and all the 12 stones, right, they all became one stone. So that, all those 12 brachas, blessings that we say, that we ask for wisdom and for refuah and for redemption and so on, all those 12 are basically one. So that's the menorah, and that's why on Shabbos, by the way, it is actually one. So you have the 3 at the beginning, the 3 at the end, and there's only one in the center, one bracha that we say in the middle, because we're always connecting. We're doing this aspect of the menorah, and like I said in one of the other classes, the menorah corresponds on a personal level. It corresponds to all the 7 openings, right? The 2 ears are the outer kanim of the menorah, and then the 2 eyes are the closer ones, and the 2 nostrils. Those are the 3 on each side, and then the center one is the mouth, which is, the redemption of the speech. Like we said, coming out of Egypt was all about redeeming the speech. It was all a redemption of that exile that the speech of Adam HaRishon went into because of the sin. When he ate from the tree, he went into this state of like a fall and a darkness and exile of the speech. So it's all a redemption of the speech, and we know that Shabbos is also a redemption of the speech. It's all about the redeeming of the malchut, which is the main tikkun of the malchut. The fixing of the malchut is the fixing of the speech, which is prayer. So that's why on the prayer they dafka set up this whole prayer of the silent prayer is set up in a way of this menorah of 3 at the beginning, 3 at the end, and 1 in the center. In the weekdays where it's like, it's all one, but there's kind of like an exile, it's not complete. So it's divided into 12, but really those 12 are one. So it's considered like one big bracha. Anyhow, I just want to say a little something that Reb Nachman says on the thoughts. So he says that when a person has these thoughts, that flickering candle, right, that la tachava mitapechet, that his thoughts just jumping from one to another because he doesn't have the pure oil, because his mind is not completely clean and pure. So he's having these thoughts. So what are you supposed to do about it? So Reb Nachman gives an eitzah, and he says that it's something very, very simple, small little Torah, but it's so deep because it's something I think a lot of people have a problem with, and it's an amazing, amazing advice of how to deal with that problem. So basically, like the let's take for example anxiety, and I'm sure there's lots of other words and different things that people use. I just don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but. Let's say we take anxiety, and a person has a very, very high level of anxiety, not a normal level of anxiety. So what that'll mean is that means that he has basically, when he thinks thoughts, so his thought just starts, he jumps and starts thinking, all kinds of steps ahead of what the result and what's gonna be, or what's, let's say somebody called you in, for a meeting, you don't know what they're going to talk to you about, and it's your boss or whatever, you're afraid. Or if a person, is going, let's say, on a trip, or doing, I don't know, anything, right? And he doesn't know what's going to be. What's going to be after this week? What, am I going to have a place to stay? What am I going to do for money? Like, and he starts getting these very, very high levels of anxiety, right? So how are you supposed to deal with it? Reb Nachman says, he gives like a foundation, a klal. He says that when it's impossible for two thoughts to come in or go out at the same time. So when a person is thinking one thought, as soon as he starts thinking another thought, that thought gets canceled. He compares it to a horse. You're with a horse, you're riding it, and you pull the rein to the right, he goes to the right. You pull him to the left, he goes to the left. So he says the thoughts is exactly the same way. It's impossible to have two thoughts at the same time. So when a person is having thoughts that he doesn't want to be thinking about, what he does is he thinks another thought, and automatically he can't be thinking that thought he was thinking. So if, let's say, a person has, he knows in his life he has certain things that are giving him, anxiety, right? And this is hopefully going to explain why the regular things that most people, get a little bit of an anxiety from, this person who has a lot of anxiety gets, from those little things, he gets very, very high levels of anxiety, and he doesn't understand why. And then they give him medication or whatever. So what a person needs to do, this is how I understand it. I'm not a psychologist, but based on what I've learned in Reb Natan, how this eitzah that Rabbeinu gives, this is, in my mind, this is how I think it would solve the problem. And I think it's worth a try, because Reb Nachman says to do it, and he says, Reb Natan also speaks about the thoughts a lot, because the thoughts is this whole pure oil. If you don't want that candle to flicker and you want to have the holiness of Shabbos, you have to have the pure thoughts. And the only way to do it is by subduing the ones that aren't pure. So basically you have to look at the thoughts as like they're your enemy. That's poison for my mind, right? So I take now, I say, okay, I'm going to make a category of how many thoughts, how many things are giving me anxiety and making me feel, get into this state of anxiety that really bother me. And you put them, let's say there's 3 thoughts, right? 3 main things that every time they keep coming back to your head, you can't stop thinking about them, and like they disorient you and make you all crazy, right? So you take those few thoughts and you categorize them, and you say, okay, these thoughts right now, for me, these are poison. These are my biggest enemy. These are the ones, not all the little things that give anxiety, but the 3 main ones, or the 2 main ones, or 5, or every person's different. You take those ones and you're like, I'm basically going out to war against these thoughts. And I'm going to do whatever, because I know these thoughts are literally a poison. Like, people who have very high levels of anxiety, they can get like numbness in their body. There's all kinds of symptoms. They literally can't function. So what are you supposed to do? You have to look at them, first of all, as your enemy, as a poison. It's mamish like these thoughts are a poison. They're coming in and they're destroying a person's body. So how am I going to deal with them? So I find the thoughts, first of all, that are causing the problem, and then I decide I'm going out to war against them. So now every time one of those thoughts throughout the day, throughout the night, come into my mind and try to get me start thinking about them, I automatically need to start thinking another thought that'll distract me from thinking of them. As soon as I think another thought and I'm focusing on that and thinking about that other thought, I can't be thinking about the one that's giving me anxiety. So you could use music, you could use classes, you could use all kinds of eitzas. If you're strong enough in the mind, you could just start focusing and thinking about something, a conversation you had with someone, Torah you learned, a class, whatever. You could just think of another thought and subdue it. If you can, sometimes people need outside things like music or classes or stuff like that they're actually listening to be able to fully distract them from that thought. And Reb Nachman says, and I think I don't know if it's that same Torah, but I think it's in a different Torah, he says that when the Yetzer Hara, he says the Yetzer Hara is nokesh, he comes, he's knocking on your person's heart, he comes and he knocks, like, somebody knocks on the door, you don't answer, right? So he gives another knock, you don't answer, he gives another knock. At a certain point, he's going to leave. So he says the same thing with the Yetzer Hara. These poisonous thoughts that keep coming and keep driving us crazy and are ruining our life, he says, when a person, is he have to be more stubborn than him. But he says at a certain point, not very far down the road, you just have to be a akshan, very stubborn, and put up the fight against him, against these thoughts, against this poison. And if you're stubborn against it, at a certain point it'll just disappear. They'll stop coming. And I don't know, but I think it's worth a try, and I'd be more than happy to hear any comments, anybody who experiences this or whatever, and actually does it and tries it and sees that it works. I'd be very happy to hear any comments about that. But to just take that as an eitzah, and I think that it would take down, if a person really got rid of those, let's call them the fathers, or the mothers, and out of them are branched out, each one of them has children, which are the smaller ones that give anxiety, but the normal ones that everybody has. We shouldn't have any anxiety. If a person really had emunah shlema and that, that everything is from Hashem, and not think of tomorrow, just of the second I'm in, we wouldn't have any anxiety. But we're humans and we all are on our own level, right? And everybody has anxiety from different things. But some people's anxiety gets, and today in this generation, with all the bilbulim and these thoughts and this impure oil and the sword and the candle flickering and thought from flying and phones and computers and just so much stuff going on. People's thought, there's a lot of people stuck in this anxiety and this thought. So just to take those, look at those as like the fathers, the heads, and once you subdue those few head ones, what'll happen is, by putting up that war we spoke about, what'll happen is those ones will slowly stop coming, and the anxiety level that a person has will start dropping. And he'll always need to add certain things, like even if he, let's say, got rid of those three, but he sees other ones are bothering you, just need to kind of focus on which thoughts are the ones that keep repetitively coming to my head, and I'm thinking of them again and again and again, because those are the heads, right? So you need to take those ones, and once you get rid of some, you add a few more. You add the ones that keep coming, and you keep putting those and looking at them at the top of the category. They're the head ones, and they're the ones that I'm fighting against. The rest of them I'm not putting up. I can't fight against everything. But at one or two or three thoughts, I could decide, okay, I'm going to mark them, I'm going to write them down. These are the thoughts that I notice that keep coming again and again. And you put a fight against those. And once you get rid of those, what happens is the anxiety level on all the other ones that are the normal ones that everybody gets anxiety from, the level of their anxiety will go back to the normal state of anxiety, where it won't be an abnormal anxiety for things that most people just get a regular, anxiety for these things. And for a person who has high level, they get, those are even really high, but they're only being affected because of he's in the state of this high anxiety because of those heads that need to be wiped out. So Bezat Hashem, if we could take Reb Nachman's eitzah, I just thought of this eitzah, that it would be a good thing to tell people, just because I know a lot of people have anxiety and these thoughts. A lot of people, Baalei Machshava, always thinking, and these thoughts could ruin your day, ruin your life. It's awful, because they, who doesn't want to live in peace of mind, right? People spend thousands of dollars vacation, go sit on an island, peace of mind, and that thought's still there with them, driving them crazy, right? So if we could deal with the problem, from wherever we are, it'll bring that peace of mind without having to, travel to other sides of the world to do it. Bezat Hashem, Shabbos.